Feminist movement is overrated.
Oh, yes.
You guys seem to enjoy when I did that reaction video yesterday, so I'm going to continue today with that very video. But first, I just want to answer and address some things about yesterday's video. So you can see the title, Feminists are wrong about male privilege, the government caters to women, and that's basically the argument that I was making. I saw some people post it on Twitter and Reddit and social media, and there were some positive reactions, but also some negative reactions too, saying, what am I talking about that the US government caters to women? The US government clearly caters to men, and US society is clearly built to benefit men. Now, one example they gave of this, I will concede, is a good point, and that is abortion. Some states are outlawing abortion. I will concede that point to feminists. Yes, that certainly is true. That is not an example of the government catering to women's needs. But let's look at the life of an American male, and let's compare growing up and going throughout life. Boys do worse in school. They get lower grades for the same work. There are less scholarships available for men. And yet the US government does pretty much nothing about it. Men are more likely to die at work. Men are more likely to be homeless. Men are more likely to be unemployed. And yet there are less social welfare programs for men. There are less social safety nets for men. There are less government programs, low-income programs for men. There is less low-income healthcare government programs for men. And Obamacare, the ACA, gives less healthcare coverage to men. Men have to be conscripted, or at least not anymore, but we do have to sign up for selective service, while women do not. Male victims of domestic violence often face very little support, and actually sometimes are the ones arrested and blamed for the crime. Men are punished more severely for the same crime, and this has been shown statistically to be a larger gap than the racial gap. Baby boys don't have body autonomy at birth and are mutilated, aka circumcised, in their first hours of life. I could go on, but I think I've shown a pretty good example of how the US government is not catered towards men's needs in any way. Well, let's get back to it. So later on in the video, they discussed, is feminism overrated? And I just want to say, I know this is a conservative versus liberal video on Jubilee. That's not what this is supposed to be about. This is not a conservative channel. This is not a right-wing channel. I just really can't help it if basically every single feminist is liberal. Nothing I can do about that. But let's take a look at what they say.
The reason I sat down is because feminism as we know it in social media and the marches is generally run by white women, and we don't have a lot of intersectionality. Margaret Sanger? Yeah,
yes.
And
Susan B. Anthony.
Susan B. Anthony, you know, total racist. The women that headed up the suffragette movement, they were not inclusive.
Of course, yes.
And they wanted rights for white women.
That's true.
And that thread has followed us to be very exclusionary to black women, disabled women, women of color, indigenous women.
I don't think that feminism in America.
You want to know why I think feminism is overrated? Because she completely ignored every single men's issue that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. She didn't list a single issue affecting men and boys. And that would be fine, because after all, feminism is a women's movement, except for the fact that feminists say we don't need a men's rights movement because feminism helps men too. But in reality, they don't help men too, because they completely ignore every single issue I just talked about, or they lie about it and deny it, or even worse, they encourage and support laws that make them worse. And then they claim that they're helping men by dismantling the patriarchy, which they don't even really explain what that means, and then kind of just don't talk about it anymore. If feminists didn't attack MRAs, if feminists didn't attack men, if feminists didn't lie about men's issues, if feminists didn't support laws that would discriminate against male victims of domestic violence, etc., then I wouldn't have a problem with feminists not addressing men's issues. If feminists just wanted to exist for women, that's fine. But when feminists do what they do, and then on top of that say that we don't need a men's rights movement because feminism is helping men, that's just not on. That's just not okay. And frankly, it needs to be called out.